Hello everyone, I'm Nancy Clark, and my friend Michael Sharon has agreed to do a video of this Fernando Garcia show at the main library downtown. It's been up from October 11th to December 15th, 2003. It was curated by Barbara Young, who's head of the art department here, and she did a wonderful job. My purpose in doing this is for those friends who are out of town. Dr. Gail O'Connell Babcock, Monique Cromley, and Joe Terlizzi in particular. The show was a wonderful show, and hopefully from this you'll get an idea of what was presented here. We're going to start outside the main doors at a shelf behind us, a case that's outside the library entrance. Sort of momentums and invitation for Fernando's work. The little hat he made for everyone who worked on the original On the Line project. Some invitations to various exhibitions, the BH Over 2, which was one of his very major shows that happened here in Miami, also incorporated with the library. The photo of him directing the people is a reading symphony performed at the library. And at the end, we have a performance documented that he did with Don Cherry, the musician. It was called Side by Side. It was performed at the Miami Art Museum across the way. In this particular installation, he covered the walls in black photographic paper. And while the concert was in progress, he proved the equation, what is happening here is happening now. And more shots, another shot of the side-by-side equation. And this next piece is the anti-bilingual bigot that was inspired by the law that was passed in Miami sometime back that no books could be purchased that were not in the English language. So he took a big wall, he wrote Cervantes' text on it, and he put up the particular proclamation that had been passed by the commission here. He stacked a number of foreign books that were in the library itself underneath a little tombstone that he always loved with a lamb on top. Before the show was able to open, there was a tremendous controversy, and he was forced to take down the anti-bilingual bigot large sign on top. However, Rafael Salazar, who photographed so much of his work, had taken this wonderful picture before the anti-bilingual bigot lettering had to come down. And incidentally, this piece with the photograph showing the anti-bilingual bigot lettering has since been shown at the library in a show by Rafael. Next we go inside the exhibit room, and the first thing that you see as you come in is a life-size photo taken by Rafael Salazar. Many people have very dramatic reactions to this photo in that it is so lifelike. I've always loved this piece, and it was done originally as part of the Nada artist when Rafael Salazar photographed all of them in life-size photos. We'll start over here with an untitled piece that was some of his earlier work, but you see here he was already experimenting wildly with color. And this is a particular piece that Deborah and Roland Castro loaned to the show. And underneath that is yet again some miscellaneous items that were very much part of his work. First is the erotic book, and this book was prepared as part of an erotic show. You'll see there's the erotic art invitation underneath, and he sent a questionnaire out to major people in the art world in town, both people who sell art, people who do art, and they all answered the questions. And the questions are to the effect like, what's the most erotic film, your most erotic food, etc. And that was what came out of that. We have a small calendar, and he worked with calendars in shapes for years, that is part of this, and a picture of a large calendar. And again, on the end we have some bars that were originally up at a store called Birdine's in Coconut Grove. That store has since been closed, and in fact many of the bars are now in my possession. Now are a number of bars from the Birdine installation, plus other bars that he painted, all very colorful. And he called this series the Jazz Babies, because the art This is from 1980 and was created originally as a one-time installation throwaway piece for a show that was being done by what they called the Cuban generation, the Miami generation. It was prepared during the Mariel boat lift, and what he would do is take pieces of the newspaper starting on day one, and he would block out anything that did not have to do with Mariel. But as you can see, day after day after day, the newspaper, the Miami Herald, was full of nothing but photos, stories, and things having to do with the Mariel boat lift, which obviously changed Miami and changed many things. The piece was so powerful that instead of throwing it away, the library bought the piece afterwards and has kept it. And it's been shown many different places. When they had the Summit of the Americas, they borrowed the piece and it was shown at the Summit of the Americas. It is on display in the library downtown, the main library in Miami. And even yet, as you read it, it's a very emotional piece about people drowning, about people who made it. And he was concerned it was going to be 9 panels, and he was concerned how it would end. He started with day one, and around the corner here we have the final panels, and the headline on the day that he had already determined would be the end of the piece said, "Bridge between Mariel and Key West broken."
Yeah, go ahead.
This particular photo, again, is by Rafael Salazar, and it's a picture of the Okeechobee Metro Rail Station. And Fernando was commissioned by Art in Public Places to do a piece at that terminal station, which is a major station. He developed a concept called making purple, and as with many of his work, it had a mathematical equation to it. There are 3 long glass skylights that come down into elevator shafts. This is done with light and with neon. In each and every case, a red neon will come down the shaft. Then a blue neon will start up. At the point when the red and blue meet, that shaft will turn purple. That's why the name of the piece, Making Purple. A piece called Aneda. When his mother was quite ill, he dedicated this piece to her and created it just for her. The library does own the piece, and here to our right, you will see how large it is in full life. This piece has been shown at the Albany Museum in Albany, Georgia, and again, it resides here at the library.
Go.
These particular 4 canvases work together and are called 4 ways. They were first shown in Albany, again at the One Man Museum show there. They're very colorful, and they very much incorporate so much of his work in that it's a very precision striped effect with pushing color to the ultimate, which was one of the things that he was known for. As you'll see on the end piece, you have the orange with the purple with the cream, but his use of color was astounding, but always the end result was very, very pleasing to the eye, surprisingly so. This particular documentary piece is of BH over 2, which is the formula for the triangle. He did a show in 3 parts. One was in a library, one was in a bank, and one was at a university. And at all 3 locations, there were cameras running, projecting people in the other spaces. Also inside the shows, there were triangles that appeared to fly off the wall. And it's one of those things you would have to see to understand what I'm saying, but it was a very interesting show and a very successful show. In this particular section, we have some calendars that were loaned for the show. For many years, Fernando worked with the time sequence of a month. He would start on the 1st and go through the end of the month and use various codes. Calendar section, and Fernando worked with the concept of time in month segments and year segments for over a period of time, from very, very large calendar pieces to smaller ones as we're seeing here. Each month he would come up with a code. For instance, an X in that month might mean he played racquetball that day. A brown circle might mean he sold a piece of art. An aqua touch might mean an art meeting, but there were always particular symbols that represented various things, and it was literally like looking at his life to read these codes. He changed the codes often, and in some of the calendars, such as the one on the far right, his diary pages are behind the calendar and stapled into the frame, actually documenting exactly what went on in each day. And knowing Fernando, he also had a code every month for when he had sex on that day, which I always thought was hilarious. This piece was documenting circles. He started out at a point at 2630 Natoma Street, walked the neighborhood, and anything that had a circle in it, he took a photo of it and created these pieces that documenting actually circles in a particular geographic area. There's a statement here that was his statement back in 1987. I'm working with the duration of darkness and daylight over a period of 24 hours. My data collecting comes from the Weather Bureau. I then translate the information into drawings and paintings. The drawings are done in blue and black colored pencil on paper, and the paintings are blue and black on canvas, stretched over a plywood core. In the daylight series, I use time unit intervals, which allow me to separate the time of daylight from darkness accurately. Numerous coats of paint are applied until I achieve the surface I desire. The surface is divided into 48 vertical intervals, corresponding to 30-minute time units. The colors change from black to blue at sunrise and from blue to black at sunset. The subject that I am working with is controlled by outside circumstances. The drawings and paintings derived from it are controlled by me with little room for arbitrariness. The main difference from piece to piece is the time of sunrise and sunset, which changes the areas of blue and black. The winter and summer solstices differ most from each other, and the spring and autumn equinoxes are most alike on one given year. And this obviously, I believe, is the autumn piece from that series. And as we move over here, this entire section is about the daylight series. Here we have the works on paper. Incidentally, this was first shown in New York City at Nobe Gallery, and it was a beautiful white gallery, and the whole place was filled with nothing but daylight series, and it had a wonderful skylight. It was absolutely fabulous in its original presentation. Again, down here in the case, we have smaller drawings that Marilyn Alva contributed, that one for each of the seasons. And on the very last little pencil drawing is a piece he did for me on my birthday. Also, as small as it is, it's absolutely accurate about sunrise and sunset. Behind us here are the actual daylight series, and Fernando claimed that they were done with such precision that anyone measuring them without having any idea what is on the back would be able to determine the day and year that it represents. So it really is his representation of time itself on canvas. Taken called After the Party, and what he did is he had friends be silhouetted, and he cut out those silhouettes. This was at the Cuban Museum, and as you'll see, the balloons are drooping, the people are all holding their heads, they're trying to low-crawling home, as it were, and it was just his idea, and he had music playing, of course. It was always multidimensional, whatever he would do. But that was his last big installation at the Cuban Museum. For the final part of the show, here are the spheres that were created for the opening of the Miami Art Museum. He was commissioned at that time. It was Jean van der Mark who was head of the museum, and he commissioned Fernando to create an installation for the opening. This Philip Johnson building was brand new, and there were so many restrictions. You couldn't put a nail anywhere. You couldn't put a hook anywhere. And we went to lunch, and he said, there's nothing left to work with except the air. And he said, that's it, I'll do something in the air. And this has a ground to sky relationship. As always, the mathematics come in. On the ground there were shaped boxes, like triangles, squares, etc. And each of these spheres was attached to a piece on the ground, a piece of sculpture on the ground, and that piece was filled with Florida elements, coconuts, seashells, sand, etc. The piece was shown twice. The next Christmas season, another sphere was added, and it was again shown. Michael, thank you so very much. What a favor it is for you to come and do this. And for those that are receiving a copy, I hope you enjoyed the show, whether you're here or not.